What happens when the greatest legal mind in history is forced to abandon the law and just rely on absolute unpredictable chaos?
I mean, you really have to throw out the entire rule book.
You do. And today, we are stepping into a narrative that demands a very specific kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're listening to this deep dive in a darkened room,
Hmm.
you're in exactly the right headspace.
The perfect setting for this one.
All right. Because we are unpacking a siege where earthly strategy completely fails, defenses just crumble, and survival comes down to one terrifying gamble.
It is a phenomenal piece of storytelling. We're looking at the source material from Chasing Death, specifically episode 39, the chapter titled Reign of Fire.
And for anyone who is maybe new to this specific narrative, we need to ground this immediately.
Right, establish the stakes.
Exactly, because this narrative bends history and myth. It takes these massive legendary historical figures who actually live centuries apart, and it pits them against each other in this brutal, fantastical conflict.
Yeah, you have Hammurabi.
Right, traditionally the ancient Babylonian king, famous for his code of laws.
Yes, the ultimate symbol of order.
But here he is defending the city of Sana'a in Yemen, and bearing down on him is Nebuchadnezzar, reimagined as this apocalyptic conqueror, leading an invading host of just unimaginable scale.
It's this brilliant alternate history fantasy. It uses these massive historical archetypes to explore the absolute extremes of leadership, of desperation, and just human endurance.
Yeah, pushed to the absolute limit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to dissect the anatomy of this desperate siege. We want to look at the psychology of a kingdom pushed to the brink of annihilation.
And what happens when the paradigm of warfare shifts from the physical to the supernatural?
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the opening image of this chapter, it sets a tone of pure dread.
It's so visceral.
It is. We start in Hammurabi's palace, but the silence isn't broken by like an earthquake or a storm. It is shattered by the frantic breath of men.
Yeah, the spies.
Right. These spies arrive, and they're dust-caked and trembling. And before they even speak, their posture just gives the nightmare away.
Nebuchadnezzar's vanguard is on the horizon.
They are out of time.
And that single moment, it just strips away every last vestige of complacency. I mean, when you are a leader like Hammurabi, whose entire identity is built on structure and order.
Right, the lawgiver.
Exactly. The sudden arrival of an overwhelming, chaotic force is the ultimate psychological blow.
But his reaction is fascinating.
It is, because there is no panic. The doors of the war council are just sealed from dawn until dusk.
Just dead silence from the leadership.
Yeah, and behind those heavy doors, they're trying to solve a mathematically impossible equation, how to stop an unstoppable force.
And what emerges from those sealed doors is this decree to turn the capital city into a fortress of pure defiance.
A literal anvil.
Right. And the preparations are intensely grim. Hammurabi orders the deep moats encircling the citadel to be flooded into this dark abyss.
Just black water.
Yeah. Massive cauldrons of oil are hauled up to the battlements, ready to be boiled. Primitive stone-throwing engines are mounted.
Because the hammer descending upon them is designed to break any conventional defense.
I mean, they're not just fighting men.
No, the text details that Nebuchadnezzar brings a corps of war elephants. And we need to understand why that matters tactically.
It changes everything.
It really does. Elephants aren't just large animals in this context. They are living siege engines that induce profound psychological horror.
Right, the horses just won't go near them.
Exactly. Horses won't charge them. Infantry lines break at the sheer sound and smell of them. It's terrifying.
Not to mention the heavy mechanical engines Nebuchadnezzar has, which can rain stones from distances that completely outrange Hammurabi's archers.
Which renders the physical defenses almost useless.
Right, so the traditional defenses, the moats, the boiling oil, they might work against men climbing ladders, but they do absolutely nothing against boulders being hurled from a quarter-mile away.
Precisely. You cannot match their strength symmetrically, which is what drives the War Council to a decision born of absolute desperation.
Right. And this is where I really want to push back on the tactical logic here.
The gamble.
The massive gamble. So, in his private sanctuary, Hammurabi summons two of his most trusted men, Ashur and Zayn.
Yeah.
And he commands Ashur to take a chosen guard, along with the queen and the prince, and just sneak out of the city at midnight.
Heading deep into enemy territory.
Right, to Nineveh. The goal is to raise a banner of rebellion using hidden loyalists.
To force Nebuchadnezzar to look over his shoulder.
Yeah, and I'm reading this and thinking, this isn't a strategy. This is blind panic. It's like playing chess where your opponent has all queens and you're throwing your own king across the board just to create a distraction.
It's a crazy move.
Why would you send your royal family into the lion's mouth?
What's fascinating here is the mechanics of asymmetrical desperation. I mean, it looks like madness on paper, I agree.
It really does.
But when you are facing a force that is terrifyingly superior in numbers and technology, a direct defense is just a prolonged suicide.
Right, you're just waiting to die.
Exactly. You can't hit the armor, so you have to hit the psychology and the logistics.
Ah, okay.
By threatening Nebuchadnezzar's rear, by attempting to set his own conquered territories on fire, Hammurabi and Zayn are trying to stall his momentum.
It's the only viable tactical move left.
It is. It's the only thing that might force the enemy to divide their forces.
So it's an all-or-nothing bet. Zayn and Asher flee beneath this shroud of darkness with 1,000 horsemen.
Just slipping out at midnight.
Yeah. They leave the doomed capital, they hide the queen and prince and a secluded estate, while 50 elite infiltrators slip into Nineveh itself.
Acting like smoke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The infiltration is described so beautifully, they move like smoke, setting fires in key districts, inciting the oppressed locals.
And it works at first.
It does. Suddenly the townspeople are cutting down Babylonian sentries in dark alleys.
It's the spark hitting dry tinder. And this creates an immediate, terrifying crisis for the newly appointed Babylonian governor of Nineveh.
Because he answers to Nebuchadnezzar.
Right. He receives a chilling ultimatum directly from the king: crush the revolt, or your head decorates the gates.
God. And fear makes monsters of men.
It really does.
The governor initiates this brutal crackdown. He hangs thousands of citizens in the public squares.
Just absolute slaughter.
Yeah, the streets fill with the stench of death. And under this suffocating brutality, the momentum of Asher's revolt just collapses.
It couldn't survive that level of violence.
Within 5 days, half of his loyalists are dead, and Asher has to vanish into the mountains. But this brings me back to my earlier doubt.
Was the plan flawed?
Yeah. Was Zayn's plan fatally flawed from the start? I mean, he essentially gambled the survival of his kingdom on the assumption that an untrained civilian mob could outlast an organized, brutally efficient military machine.
And that is the core tragedy of this section. Insurgencies rarely succeed overnight, and they almost never succeed without secure supply lines and decentralized command structures.
Which Zayn absolutely did not have.
Neither of which he had. He underestimated the brutal mechanics of a militarized state. The governor's terror of his own king was far greater than his hesitation to slaughter his own city.
He was willing to cross moral lines the civilians couldn't even fathom.
Exactly. So the military crushes the mob, and the governor sends a jubilant message to Nebuchadnezzar saying the path is secure.
The rebellion is dead.
Right. Now, I want you to imagine you are in Zayn's shoes for a moment. Think of a time in your own life when you convinced someone to bet everything on your backup plan.
Oh, man, yeah.
A plan B that you were absolutely certain would work, and then you get the message that plan B has completely evaporated.
Just vanished.
You are left entirely exposed to the main threat, and you realize you have doomed the people relying on you.
That is a terrifying psychological space to occupy, because with that single message, the distraction fails entirely.
Nebuchadnezzar turns his undivided attention back to Yemen.
The storm breaks. And here we hit another military decision that honestly confused me.
The Vanguard clash.
Yeah. Hammurabi hears the border is falling, and he sends a strike force of 5,000 men out of the city to meet the enemy in the open.
Right.
They collide with 10,000 seasoned killers and those looming gray war elephants. And Hammurabi's force is just obliterated.
Scattered to the wind.
Why send 5,000 men out from behind your walls? That seems like tactical suicide.
It does seem counterintuitive, but you have to understand the psychology of border defense in ancient warfare. You cannot simply let an invading army march uncontested to your capital.
It looks weak.
It demoralizes your entire populace, and it allows the enemy to set up their siege lines unharassed. Hammurabi was likely hoping to use the terrain to bottleneck the vanguard, to bloody their nose and just buy some time.
Those war elephants.
The war elephants neutralized that tactic entirely. Once the front line broke, the survivors scattered.
Which brings the apocalypse directly to the doorstep of Sana. The Babylonian host surges forward.
The siege begins.
Hammurabi watches from the high citadel, as the earth itself seems covered in the bronze of the enemy. The great gates are heaved shut.
And the trap is closed.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the narrative shifts. It stops being about tactical warfare and turns into this claustrophobic, psychological nightmare.
Because a siege isn't just a physical assault, right? It is an assault on the mind.
Right. It begins with this deceptive calm, But by the second day, the heavy engines start.
The boulders.
Great stones batter the city walls for hours. I mean, you can almost feel the vibrations through the text. By evening, the massive wall actually begins to fissure.
And inside those crumbling walls, we see the true cost of that failed backup plan in Nineveh.
Zayn's guilt.
Yes. Zayn sits in the emergency council in a heavy, suffocating silence. He realizes a brutal truth. The illusion of his backup plan actually prevented Hammurabi from negotiating. Yeah, if Hammurabi hadn't believed the Nineveh revolt would save them, he might have sought terms of peace while he still had leverage.
Before the vanguard arrived.
Exactly. Now, because of Zayn's assurances, they are trapped in an unwinnable battle.
So Zayn's desperation peaks. He suggests a midnight commando raid to destroy those devastating catapults.
A last resort.
50 shadows slip out through a hidden gate, crawling through the tall grass with oil-soaked wool. And they actually reach the engines.
Oh, it gets so close.
But as they strike their flints, a single Babylonian sentry spots them.
Uh-huh.
A war drum shatters the night, the camp erupts, and it is an absolute massacre.
Only 2 men make it back.
Just 2 men scramble back to the city to report the disaster.
And this sequence perfectly illustrates the cruel, unforgiving math of a siege.
Yeah.
Earlier in the chapter, Hammurabi inspected his granaries and noted they had food to last a full year.
Right, they thought they had time.
But that timeline is a comforting lie. Time means absolutely nothing when your structural integrity fails. Granaries don't matter when your wall is a pile of rubble on the 3rd day.
And by the 5th day, physical defenses have completely failed. The stones tear a massive gap in the wall.
It's over.
The Babylonians fashion these large iron-shielded canopies and advance right into the breach. Hammurabi's men pour the boiling oil from above, and for a brief moment, the screams fill the air.
But it's not enough.
It doesn't matter. More soldiers just climb over the dead. Tactical defenses are useless. We are looking at absolute despair.
The Babylonians are at the throat of the city.
It is a tableau of total agonizing defeat.
It really is. I mean, Hammurabi is exhausted, covered in the dust of his crumbling palace, just prostrate in the temple.
The queen and the princesses are sitting nearby, just waiting for the chains of slavery.
The human agency in this story has been entirely exhausted.
And Hammurabi accepts it. He tells Zayn, what is written in destiny cannot be erased by the hand of man. He resigns himself to the crushing weight of history.
But Zayn refuses.
He does. Driven by that immense guilt, Zayn climbs to the highest tower of the palace, looking out over the slaughter, and he issues this ultimate, desperate plea to the heavens.
The final prayer.
The text provides his exact words roaring into the smoke-filled air. O spirit of the deserted temple, O sister of the goddess Baltus, fulfill your ancient vow, help me now, or let the world end in fire.
And the response defies all natural law.
It is genuinely unbelievable. As the last word leaves his lips, a flash of crimson light streaks across the horizon.
The sky literally changes.
A strange, red cloud boils up in the west, expanding with his unnatural speed until it swallows the sun entirely.
And the fighting actually stops.
Everything stops. Even Nebuchadnezzar looks up with growing dread, and then the cloud breaks. But it doesn't rain water.
It rains fire and molten lead.
The imagery is apocalyptic. The sky vomiting a deluge of liquid flame. The Babylonian soldiers caught in the open are incinerated.
And the elephants.
Those terrifying war elephants, the very monsters that broke the vanguard, they shriek in agony as the fire consumes them, reducing them to pillars of ash.
The wooden siege engines ignite like dry straw.
It's like preparing for a conventional ground war, relying on your armor and your numbers, and suddenly the enemy drops an EMP.
Yes, exactly.
All your defenses, all your military doctrines are rendered instantly obsolete because the fundamental rules of physics just changed.
The Babylonians were prepared for arrows and boiling oil. They were absolutely not prepared for the wrath of the stars.
A deafening roar shakes the earth, and a massive red lightning bolt strikes the very hill where Nebuchadnezzar is sitting.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are witnessing the narrative function of divine aid, or a deus ex machina, but rendered with terrifying brutality.
It's so visceral.
In these kinds of epic narratives, when human capability is utterly spent and defeat is mathematically certain, the introduction of a supernatural force doesn't just win the battle, it recontextualizes what power actually is.
Right.
Nebuchadnezzar's empire was earthly. It was built on bronze, logistical superiority, and the organized application of fear. He knows how to conquer a city. But you cannot fight an enemy that commands the sky.
And the psychological break is total. The remnants of the Babylonian host watch their comrades turn to ash and their discipline just shatters.
They break.
They abandon their weapons, their pride, their entire camp, and flee blindly into the desert.
And Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar himself miraculously survives the lightning strike, but he is scorched, shattered, and just hauled onto a horse by his guards to escape.
Which initiates a massive, incredibly ironic domino effect.
Yes.
Nebuchadnezzar flees back toward Nineveh, desperate for the safety of his conquered territory. But he can't outrun the story of his own defeat.
The news of this supernatural undoing travels faster than his horse.
Right, and this is where Zayn's failed Plan B suddenly comes back into play.
The rebellion.
The very rebellion that was so brutally crushed in Nineveh is instantly reignited.
But why? Why does it work this time when it failed so miserably 5 days ago?
Because the mechanism of control has been broken. The governor maintained control through the citizens' fear of Nebuchadnezzar's invincibility.
Right. The terror kept them in line.
Exactly. A mob with pitchforks cannot beat an organized military, but an organized military will mutiny or collapse when they believe the gods themselves are burning their empire.
Wow.
When the oppressed people of Nineveh hear that the great king has been broken by liquid fire, their terror vanishes. The aura of invincibility is shattered.
So they rise up.
They rise up, storm the palace, and execute the brutal governor on the spot.
So when the fallen, scorched Nebuchadnezzar finally arrives at the gates of Nineveh, seeking sanctuary, he finds them barred against him.
He's locked out of his own empire.
He stands there, just a shadow of his former self, and realizes his mighty empire was nothing but a fragile illusion held together by fear.
A house of cards?
He whispers to his officers that they must cross into Nubia and hide in the shadows. He rides south, leaving Hammurabi alone and Seta to rebuild a kingdom from the ashes of a miracle.
It is a stunning reversal. It proves that power built entirely on terror is a house of cards. The moment the wind blows, or in this case, the moment the sky burns, the entire structure collapses under its own weight.
So what does this all mean? When we strip away the fantasy elements, the war elephants, the rain of fire, we are looking at the extreme limits of human endurance and the illusion of control.
Yeah.
It asks you to consider the moments when your own walls are crumbling, when every logical backup plan has failed, and you are left entirely exposed.
When there's nowhere left to run.
Hammurabi and Zayn survive because they maintain their defiance just long enough for the paradigm to shift, even when it defied all logic.
And it leaves us with a lingering late-night thought to ponder in the dark.
I love this part.
In the temple, amidst the dust of defeat, Hammurabi claimed that destiny was fixed, that the hand of man could not erase what was written.
But Zayn didn't accept that.
Exactly. Atop that tower, Zayn refused to accept that. He cried out, demanding that the universe rewrite the ending. And so, as you sit in the quiet of your own space, consider this. Did Zayn's desperate, furious plea actually break the rules and change the fabric of fate in that final second?
Well,
Or was that terrifying, miraculous rain of fire exactly what was destined to happen all along?